work to make sure that the Japanese bilingual bicultural program was strong and with a sensei program, so it's genuinely supporting the community. I think I was the key vote that on the school board, but mostly because everybody educated me about how important it is to maintain the integrity as a community program, so that, and also that Rosa Parks in the Fillmore and Japantown is an important institution that I know Tomi's late husband was there, Will, kind of at Raphael Wheel, so formerly Raphael Wheel, but now Rosa Parks Elementary School. So really uniting not only the Japanese community, but also the African American community there. But I learned a lot from people that are in the room. There's also people too that might know that my daughter's now like a J-Town kid because she's been through the JCYC summer program with Glennis and Emily and other people's children. So she feels a real commitment as a Japanese American to really give back to the community as well. And I'm hoping that she kind of grows up like Emily has to continue to give back as she goes on from JCYC to other things too. But my roots with the Japanese American community go back to my days with the National Coalition for Redress and Reparations when I was a student. And Rich Wada and I know about the Asian American Studies work and supporting the Asian American movement. But I really learned a lot about the Japanese community from displacement during the internment to the second displacement of the redevelopment era and the so-called urban renewal. So preserving the Japantowns and the ethnic communities has always been something that's been really important to me. So the work of the J-Town Task Force to the Merchants Association and the community groups to preserve important historical institutions, but also to keep a vibrant Japantown in Nihonmachi, not just here, but also in San Jose, West LA. The only few, I think it's one of 3 remaining Nihonmachis in the city, but I'm a strong supporter. When redistricting threatened to divide the Japantown community, I know with Rich and Karen Kai and Robert Rusky and others, we worked together I strongly supported keeping Japantown whole, but also united with the African American community as well. And many of the J-Town leaders were really key in making sure that the redistricting didn't kind of harm the Japanese community as well. My uncle was in the 442, and I've learned a lot about Japanese Americans' service to the U.S. and building the communities. But I know many other people also were resistors, no-no boys and girls, I guess. But really, I see the Japanese community as not a monolithic one, but that if we know history about how World War II or the urban renewal of the 50s and 60s impacts our communities, hopefully we build a stronger, more united community as well. I'm really proud that I've been on the Board of Supervisors for 4 years and working with many of you on the Board of Education as well. We deal with many different issues, but I always feel that learning from the community-based groups, whether it's JBVP, education leaders or others, is really a critical way that we're better supervisors. One difficult vote that came up a couple weeks ago was the Rossmere Karimi sheriff's vote, and I was pulled in many directions by many of my allies for years to support a friend and colleague and his family, but I felt it was more important to stand up for principle, and so listening to domestic violence groups and women's organizations that have been counseling families and women victims of domestic violence over the years. And it was bigger than just one person or even just one top law enforcement officer, but I felt that that issue was one where I voted my conscience, but I couldn't have done that without, I think especially Emily, Debbie Lee, Beverly, and so many other leaders of the women's and domestic violence movements as well. But as a supervisor, I've tried to be independent and tried to listen very, very hard and deeply as a guide to other communities wherever I could, whether it's the Arab American community, which I know Ali is a really strong leader in, to the Japanese American or seniors and many others. I'm proud of my record for 4 years. I've been championing something that we call aging in place and making the city more of an aging-friendly city. I turned 50 a couple of weeks ago, and I'm feeling my age, but I know my mom's 88, and I know that elders in our communities need to stay in our neighborhoods as long as humanly possible because you're valuable to everyone. So supporting programs that allow people to stay in their homes longer, whether it's SF Village, which is an aging in place program on Geary and Arguello, or Next SF, which is in Chinatown North Beach, or Bernal Heights Neighborhood Center, but it's community-based programs that allow people to have somebody that helps them turn off the burners, take you to your dental appointments, or other types of programs. But that's one of the key things that I'm trying to work on as a supervisor. It doesn't only help the Richmond. I'm being blasted as a 10% supervisor for legislation now that they claim that I only care about the community 10% of the time, but I care about not only the Richmond district's health and well-being, but also other people. I sponsored legislation with a few other supervisors to make sure that seniors in SROs, the most vulnerable people in the city, I think, but seniors in single-room occupancy hotels had safer, less isolated places to live. And that might be seen as something that kind of doesn't help our district, but it helps people the most in need. But I feel proud that I've worked for good jobs and a good economy and healthy communities in the Richmond and throughout the city. On different votes to make sure that we have jobs, I've brought with the property owner and a new business called Grocery Outlet to 27th Avenue in Geary. It's the old, most recently Delano's Market next to Mayflower Chinese restaurant. But we're kind of making sure that they're going to open up sometime next year, probably mid next year, with probably about 70 new jobs. Also working with Washington High School and their vocational ed. There's still an auto shop, if you could believe it. And there's a couple of academies there too, but we've worked with a group called SF Made that makes San Francisco made products so that there'll be 20 paid internships for high school students. And then hopefully a pathway to better jobs for many youth that might not be college bound, but still it's a good training ground for the engineering academy, the auto shop, and other things too. But there's all kinds of different efforts to create a better economy with jobs for young people and pathways so that our young people have good jobs for the future. The merchant corridors are one of the key issues that I've worked on really heavily to try to make sure that the Alexandria Theater is developed right, not only to preserve kind of the key parts of the iconic Art Deco stuff on the outside, but the most important thing is that it becomes a community serving institution. We want to see the YMCA have more space on 18th Avenue to expand, but also there's a plan for housing, some of it below market rate or for lower income families to live there. It's a long process where we work with the planning department and many different city agencies, but we're doing our best to make sure it's developed right. It probably won't be for at least a year and a half, but we're working on it hard with people. I know that headlines often will, for the mainstream media, will focus on the controversial issues like Happy Meals, but I feel very proud that I've stood up with many pediatricians, health advocates, and others to fight against big fast food so that they at least do a tiny bit to get healthier food, especially if they're using like a toy to entice people and kids to unhealthy foods. But we made a major breakthrough by forcing fast food companies to acknowledge a connection to childhood obesity, and they made a number of changes, not just McDonald's, but Burger King and 23 other chains. But sometimes the press won't cover that, but I feel very proud that it sparked many other health advocates and food access people all over the country to try to stand up more for their neighborhoods too. The last thing I was going to say is healthier communities to me is also people supporting the parks. So the Parks Bond is really critical. We want to make sure that everybody's out there on Tuesday as we cut the ribbon for Fulton Playground as it's reopened on 27th Avenue. Then Cabrillo comes next, where I've been working with Friends of Cabrillo, not only on the Dahlia garden that's right on one side of it, but also there's a ping pong table that we helped to negotiate with the Rec and Park Department, and it's not easy to negotiate with the Rec and Park Department, but it's this concrete one that people will be able to use, but it's also kind of a really good use. But we listened hard to the Friends of Cabrillo Playground to make sure that it was going to be built in the way that they felt served the community the best. But I feel very proud of my record creating good jobs, a good economy for our merchant sector, but also healthier communities for everyone. But thank you so much for being here. And I know that Rich said that we were going to kind of dialogue and I'll answer any questions people have. But yeah. It's only 10 more days for the race. my opponent has support from some of the biggest business and outside interests of the city. It's $600,000 that has been pumped into his campaign. There's never been anything like that in our history. And I think it's because they want to replace a neighborhood-based, community-oriented supervisor with somebody that is pliable to their interests from the outside. I'm fighting a really great, fighting back with a great grassroots campaign. We're doing a lot of kind of door-to-door, talking to people one-on-one. He's slinging a lot of mud and lies kind of in his mail, and he spent $50,000 on a TV ad that was produced by some of the Republican Party media people, but it's something that we're trying to counter with a grassroots campaign. So I really appreciate all the support you can give. There's also phone banks every day in the next 10 days, and we have a great get out the vote effort too. But we really need the support as we try to make sure that the Richmond district is not for sale, and we won't let the outside interests buy our district, but we need your help to make sure that that's going to be the message on November 6th and November 7th. So thank you, everyone.
For those of you who haven't signed the sign-up sheet, please sign it before you leave. And there's some literature and some house signs. If you know people in Richmond, could you please take a house sign? I make all my relatives put it up. I don't know how long they keep it up, but if you could do that, we'd be really appreciated. And Eric still has some time. You can take any questions from him.
I don't think I mentioned, my daughter's 12, she goes to Presidio, she kind of hangs out with a lot of the parents and kids that are in here, whether it's hula or JCYC or other types of things. I was the director of the Immigrant Rights Coalition and immigration attorney for years. I taught at San Francisco State for 16 years as an Asian American Studies teacher, teaching about Japantowns and immigration and civil rights. And I really, really miss being at SF State, and I hope I can get back there, or maybe USF or someplace in the future too.